Hi, my name is Liz Kahn. I'm here with Unique Behavioral Wellness Services, and this is Dr. James Jernigan, Cornerstone
Chiropractic, yep.
We're here to tell you a little bit about what we do because nobody really understands it.
Yeah, you might have heard of what our profession is, but then we have our own spin on it. We have our own unique thing that we bring to the table. Yeah, niche. Yep.
Our niche.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we start with you, James? I know you're a chiropractor,
yep.
but you don't really do much of the typical crack and go. I don't even know the terminology.
Sure, yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about how you practice, who do you work with, what makes you different from a regular chiropractor?
Yeah, so most people, when they think about chiropractic, they think about neck pain, back pain, and headaches is another common one that they think about.
Mm-hmm.
Like misalignment in the spine or some sort of damage in the spine, you go to a chiropractor to help relieve pain. And yes, we do that in the office, but that's more of a byproduct of what we do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really the reason why I focus on the spine is because it houses and protects your spinal cord and those nerves. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, your brain and your spinal cord literally control every function in your body. And in order for it to work at its best, it needs to have no interference whatsoever. And so that's why we really look at the spine to address those causes.
I think you said no interference.
Yeah.
How can a chiropractor
right.
eliminate the interference that gets in the way?
Yeah, and what we do in our office is we look at neurological output from your nervous system. So we have 3 unique scans in our office that tell us if there is any nerve interference, and if there is, it tells us exactly where it is and to what degree.
Oh.
So we see a lot of people with headaches having misalignments in their upper part of their spine, and then it decreases the blood flow or it irritates those nerves going back into the head. So really what we do is you can almost think of it as like a fuse box in your house. So there's certain parts of the spine, and those nerves that exit those spines goes to every cell, tissue, and organ in your body. And so if it's going out to your heart, if it's going out to your lungs, or maybe it's going down your hand, and if there's any interference there, you can get numbness and tingling in your hand.
And that's all related to this?
Yes.
Wow.
Your brain and your spinal cord, yeah.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And so even taking it a step further, because more and more people are starting to understand that once you start getting your spine corrected, then you can, they see a lot of other health benefits. We've seen a lot of people with like heart disease, diabetes, fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, all the way to, people in wheelchairs being able to walk again.
Wow.
And I've literally traveled the United States and Canada to work with the best doctors in my profession because I'm dedicated to being the best doctor that I can possibly be. And so I was able to see miracles after miracles and really starting to see that there's a direct correlation between the health of your spine and the overall health and vitality of your life.
Wow. Okay, so you've traveled around the world. You've worked with these great doctors. You see that it's more than just this one thing.
Yeah.
What are some of the other elements that you always bring in to working with your clients?
Yeah, one of the biggest things I found out was seeing, the most successful doctors clinically getting the best results. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, people, the word of mouth in the community mm-hmm. is that the best doctors are the ones that actually care. They really listen to the person. They want to find out really what's going on. And so in my office, what we do is we dive deep into your case history. We find out where you're going, where were you, and what were those things that you were doing, leading to what the result was, where you are now, and then getting you to hit your goals. So
like if somebody was in a car accident, that's the history, right?
Yep.
Or is there more to it?
There's definitely more to it. And like I was saying, when I was traveling the United States and Canada, what we were actually seeing were 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and 40-year-olds that their health was completely wrecked. And their spine was so degenerated and there was so much damage in their spine. I would ask these doctors, hey, when did this problem actually start? Mm. And time after time, they would tell me decades. And so, Liz, I wanted to trace it back, right, as a preventative approach in order to help, when we correct their spines and they get better, then if we apply some of these principles that we do in our office and we adjust their spine and as we start getting it corrected, they get better, wouldn't it be amazing if we got to it when it first started, so that they don't have to suffer. That's one of the biggest things that I just really can't handle is suffering in any aspects, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I think that's why we really, really connect so well. And so I started tracing it back, and I thought, well, I was in wrestling, and wrestling was tough on my spine. I thought sitting in class for 8 hours a day is tough on your spine. Backpacks, and then also, what do we do all the time? Text neck. So I was thinking,
because he's young, he was texting when he was in high school.
Yeah. I had my first flip phone in 8th grade, and I thought it was so cool. I was a little nervous because my parents said I could get a phone, and I was just hoping that I would be able to get the flip phone. Once I got it, I had a sigh of relief, and I showed it off to everybody.
Yeah. But then that leads you to this, right? The shoulders, the fingers, the wrists. So it's more than just the spine, even, but all of that impacts the spine.
Yeah, and you know that physiology and your emotional component, the physiology and mentally, they're correlated. And one leads to another, and the other one leads back to the other one. It's almost like a nasty...
It's a loop, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
A feedback loop.
So one can cause the other, the other one can cause the first.
Absolutely.
So what do you do when you have somebody who's got that loop? How, it sounds like you're saying there are ways to correct that and make it more linear.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a direct correlation between, like we were saying, the health of your spine and the overall health of your life. And really it's a whole lot deeper than that. I think that a lot of times when we try to talk about it, we try to make sense to everybody, but really there's the misalignment and fixation, which we're all we know about with chiropractic. But then there's
maybe we don't all know about it. Alignment and fixation.
The misalignment and fixation. I wish we had a spine with us. But a misalignment and fixation in the spine. So that's the first component. But then there's actually 4 neurological ramifications from that actually shift your nervous system into more of a fight or flight response.
Oh, we know about fight or flight.
Sympathetics, right? We like to talk about it because we see a lot of kids.
Sure.
Gas pedal, fight or flight response. And like we know, short-term fight or flight response, good.
Perfect.
There's a bear on the other side of the door. Yeah. That's where we need to be. But long-term, that's where chronic stress comes in. That's where
chronic pain
comes in. The World Health Organization says that 80% of all chronic diseases in the world could be reversed or completely bypassed with just exercise,
good nutrition, right?
And then quitting smoking. So if you just do those 3 things...
Quit smoking.
That's a good one. But yeah, just do those 3 things and 80% of it could be reversed or completely bypassed.
That's very interesting. So you talked about the nervous system, and then you brought in nutrition and toxins. Smoking is toxin.
Yes, so absolutely.
How does that relate to your spine?
Yes, I love it. Yeah. There are 3 categories of stress that you need to know about. And Liz is phenomenal with one of those categories, and we love, we talk about this all the time because it's the most significant. So the first one is physical stress, like we were talking about, sports injuries, things like that, sitting at your desk all day. And then chemical stress. Smoking's one of them, but honestly, if we did a 4-day seminar on all the toxins in our lives.
Right, being behind a truck.
Seriously.
Any number of things.
Yeah, we would just scratch the surface on that.
Sure.
And then the emotional component, which seeing thousands and thousands of patients, quite honestly, just being a human.
Right.
By far and away, and science is proving it more and more every day, that the emotional component to stress is by far and away the most significant and taxing on your nervous system and how you can heal.
Yeah.
So with those 3 categories of stress, and you can almost think of it like a bucket. I wish we had a bucket here, but...
we have a bottle.
Okay, we have a bottle.
This can work. It's even got some water in it.
So let's pretend this is a bucket, and physical, chemical, and emotional stresses are constantly in our life. We can minimize those, but ultimately, like the chemicals, you just can't avoid all of them. So it is about minimizing it. But when there's a certain point when you just filled it up so much that it starts to pour over... Yeah. That's where subluxation occurs, or we talk about.
Say it again.
Subluxation.
Subluxation.
You can think about subluxation as stress on your nervous system. Really, that's let's just boil it down to there. I told you that there's 5 components to subluxation.
Okay.
The misalignment and fixation is the first portion, or the one that most of us are familiar with chiropractic. but then the 4 neurological components.
I don't know if it's still recording when it goes
Sarah,
off. Hey, Sarah, do you mind just touching the mouse pad?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, so we're back. So there's 4 neurological components that go along with that. And really what we're talking about is, and we dive deep into I have an hour workshop where we dive
It's a lot of fun if you're local.
Yes, and we dive into ADHD, sensory processing disorder, autism, and why we're getting such great results with that.
All of this that chiropractics can address.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one great point that we need to talk about.
Absolutely.
Is chiropractic, really, quite honestly, you'll never hear me say it, it never treats or cures anything. That's not our philosophy.
Okay.
I truly believe, and as chiropractors, we believe that your body is designed to heal. We know that from a simple cut on your arm to heal. Right. Your brain knows exactly what's going on. It communicates with the body to find out what's going on. Just like a good mentor, it first listens, so it first gets the perception.
Sure.
We all know about the 5 senses, the taste, touch, those things, and so there's a cut on your arm, sends messages up those nerves through the spinal cord into the brain. Your brain processes it and changes the coordination of behavior of the cells that need to take place to heal that.
Isn't that cool?
So it's pretty in depth, but really, when there's stress on the nervous system, when there's those 3 causes of stress in your life, and then subluxation, it shifts your body into this sympathetic tone. And so we talk about ADHD a lot. That's one of the biggest things that parents, they say, hey, doc, you talk a lot about sensory processing disorder, ADHD, and autism.
Chiropractors don't do that.
Yeah, that makes 0 sense.
Right.
And that goes back to the nervous system, and it gets deeper into it. And maybe we could do another video sometime that we just specifically dive into all the neurological components.
That would be awesome.
Of it. Yeah. And so the reason why I shifted into pediatrics was I was seeing all of these people that were 20, 30 years old with massive degeneration in their spine. So I traced it back to childhood.
Yeah.
And then I thought, so maybe the damage starts then. Then the British Medical Journal released a study, and it showed that 10%, so 1 out of 10 kids that you see, already showing signs of degeneration in their spine.
At how old?
10 years old.
At 10 years old.
And so I thought logically, right? I'm from the Midwest. My parents raised me off of logic, and they said common sense, no matter where you go in life, no matter how smart you get, don't lose track of your common sense. And so in our office, what we really like to focus on is we're nerds, we love science, but we love to encapsulate it into common sense to make it applicable. Because if you can't apply it, then I'm just talking over people's heads, and you're not getting anything in return from it.
Right.
And so I traced it all the way back further. We got it in. Then I started finding out about the birth process and in utero constraint.
Wow. So
Yeah.
this goes before even getting into this environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of case histories, right? We dive into the case history, and we find out that maybe the child was breech. Maybe there was some sort of stress. Maybe the cord was wrapped. They needed to do emergency C-section. That brought along forceps, a vacuum distraction, and there's a lot of stress on that. And when I used to do these talks, we would talk about the Gutman study. It was in the 80s, and it showed that 8 out of 10 kids were born with some sort of misalignment in their spine, just in the 80s.
Just from being in utero.
In utero, and then the birth process. And so, do you think the studies got better or worse?
I'm going to guess that they got worse. Because that's what happens when you investigate something, right?
Yes, and unfortunately, and here's the thing, guys. This is what I want you to know. Liz and I, we're all about awareness. We're all about giving you action steps of what you can do to empower yourself, to take care of not only yourself, but your family. Really?
And your community.
And, yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that amazing how it just kind of ripples out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, really, the reason why we bring this up is just to build awareness. And quite honestly, we don't bash, we don't talk bad about other professions because we like to use their research. We like to use a wide variety of research to find out truth.
Right.
Because if I just look at chiropractic research, then, there's good research in there, but it can also be from a biased standpoint. But if I look at OTs, PTs, speech pathologists, if we look at a wide variety of research, then we can really start drawing in the clues.
Sure.
And the Journal of American Osteopathic Association released a study last year in 2016, and it showed that 99% of children born today have some sort of misalignment in their spine. 99%.
And I mean, not to point fingers, I mean, is this because we're not getting great obstetrics care? Is this because the society at large puts more stress on pregnant mothers or pregnant women? I mean, are there things that we can do? Are there things that pregnant women can do? Because I'm not.
Sure. Yeah.
But are there things that pregnant women can do that can help to keep this growing thing in alignment?
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
So here's the thing, guys. I bring up that study just for to understand that this is a huge issue and this is a huge topic. And thank God for C-section, because it saves a lot of mothers' lives, and it saves a lot of children's lives. But the World Health Organization also shows that it should be about 10% of the births.
I definitely know some women who have opted for an elective C-section, and I didn't know that was possible.
It's becoming more and more popular.
I'm planning the date of my child's birth. And
you hear more and more. Yeah. Hey, on July 15th at 5:30, we're having our baby.
Yeah.
And
because the doctors agree.
Yeah, the doctors, it's just society. This is what's becoming normal, and just because it's common, right, doesn't mean that it's normal and really
beneficial.
Or beneficial, absolutely.
Right.
And I mean, think about the whole smoking sensation, right? Like this whole smoking process. Like doctors were recommending it.
Yeah.
Like you'd see 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Camel. Like those advertisements, right?
It was a while ago. We don't see those anymore.
Yeah, no, for sure. We became aware of it, and we found out the ramifications of what's really going on, and that's what I want to tell you guys about. And then I think this is where we're really going to start tying in the gap and start correlating it over to more about what you do as well. And I think this is fantastic, and this is why I talk about Liz so much in the community, is because mom's neurology, mom's physiology, mom's psychology directly correlate to baby's neurology, physiology, and psychology.
Yeah.
So, and going back to common sense, always going back to common sense, why? Right? Why is that so?
Right.
And it's because mom is priming her baby to be able to adapt and live in the environment that she's living in.
Yeah.
And so the more that we can be aware of those 3 categories of stress, physical, chemical, and emotional, if mom's hips are misaligned, then in utero, like her uterus is starting to get some tension, and we talk about in utero constraint. And so there's not a lot of research showing in utero constraint leading to misalignments in the spine, but absolutely on their ability to flip. Right. So we have more breech babies, and with car accidents or sitting in chairs or whatever it is, if mom's misaligned, then inside she's misaligned as well. And so the likelihood of having an intervention birth, which we're talking about, C-section, things like that, are more common, more prevalent. So let's dive into that just real quick, and then we'll tie that gap. So the World Health Organization says 1 out of 10 births should be C-section. Like that's an average number. That's what it should be. But most places it's 30, 40, upwards of 50, 60, and on up on the C-section rates. And quite honestly,
out of how many? Because you said the 1 out of 10 versus and then you
so
said 30, 40.
Yeah. So 1 out of 10 is what it should be.
Right.
Unfortunately, what the rates are
more like 3 or 4 out of 10.
Yeah, or maybe 5 or 6 out of 10.
Wow.
And so some hospitals are even higher than that. So it's not about talking bad about one. It's just saying like, hey, there are more options. There are a lot of women that are choosing other options. And and here's the one quick note about that. If you feel like you should have a birth in a hospital, and that's what's congruent, that's what's authentic, that's where it resonates with you, you should do it at the hospital. Yeah. If you want to do it at a birthing center and that's where you feel most, that's comfortable with you, then do it there. My cousin and his wife, who are down in Florida, they just had a home birth, and everything was amazing. But even then, there was a small misalignment in the upper part of Selah's neck. And so it's just all about minimizing the amount of physical, chemical, and emotional stresses. And like we were saying, the emotional component. A lot of times when a new birth, and I know I'm a man. I'm never.
We listen to him,
never going to have a
as a mom.
Experience.
I say I listen to him.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's all sort of unknowns.
Yeah.
Right. And when I was with, so I went to OB with my mom when she was pregnant with my little sister,
yes.
then the first thing they said was, so, you know, you're in your 30s, you're not gaining enough weight. Sarah, can you? Perfect. You're not gaining enough weight. The baby's not gaining enough weight. Like, more than likely, there's going to be something wrong with your child. And I'm 10, and so I instantly go into that fight or flight mode, that sympathetic mode, right? And so that was right at the beginning of the pregnancy, and through the rest of the time, I was always asking my mom, "Did you eat enough? Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? Did you get enough sleep?" And I was just constantly doing this until the day that my little sister was born, and they waited to find out if it was going to be a boy or a girl. And I was at my grandma's house, and my grandma said, "Hey, your mom just had her baby."
The baby,
and I said, the first question I said, Liz, was not, was it a boy or a girl? It was, is it healthy? And she smiled and from across the room and said, yes. And I said, is it a boy or a girl?
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to take a deep breath until I counted her fingers and toes and got to see her in person. And so that's a long story. And if ever I tell you to make a long story short, which I probably say, pour yourself another cup of coffee. Yes, absolutely. But what I'm trying to say is every pregnancy, there's some sort of unknown to it. Yeah. And there's some sort of, questions. And really, it's the emotional component. Always driving back to the emotional component. And that's when we dive into really what Liz does. And it's incredible. And quite honestly, implementing some of the quick, 1-2 steps of what Liz does,
it's simple,
completely radically transforms your life. And I've been on this journey, for 7 years, completely renewing and transforming my mind to really retrain my brain and restructure my brain, which we're going to be talking about soon. Really, that's what I've been doing. And then with just one quick tip that Liz did,
it wasn't quick. It was 4 hours. It was a lot of fun.
But
everybody who was there thought it was less than 4 hours.
Yes, it was amazing. And honestly, with all the technology now, with our attention span, it's way less. So for her to hold your attention for 4 hours, she's amazing. Just go to her class, do it. It's phenomenal. But just one of the tips, I've been implementing it in my life every single day, and it completely changes my whole perspective on my day, right?
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about what you do and really the philosophy behind why you're even, in this realm?
I want to have you all know that we did not give each other questions.
Yeah, we're just throwing.
I love that question. Well, first I want to start with the philosophy, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The philosophy behind most of the things that I do is you are your best resource. And so many of us have gone through therapy. I love to share my story. My mom put me in therapy when I was 5, when my parents got divorced. And until I was about 32, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. was therapy. And I will tell you that this was like 30 years of me going to this person and trying to get them enough information that they could help me to feel better. And usually what I got was, Liz, you have to learn to let it go.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Awesome. Got it. Perfect. So, right?
For those of you who know me, you know that was not sufficient. And I can almost hear at least 15 of you going, and she said, tell me how.
Right.
Tell me how to let it go, and I will, because I don't want to feel this way anymore. Nobody could help.
Yeah.
Because it turns out that I was the only one who could do it. I kind of felt like Dorothy in Oz, at the end when she clicks her heels together and says there's no place like home, and she's the one who can transport herself. So I had gone through all of this stuff, all this time, all this money that comes out, right? And I still felt awful.
Yeah.
And then suddenly my therapist says, if nothing's going to help you, maybe you should try some medications. That was the last time I stepped foot in a therapeutic office.
Yeah.
I was done. I was like, if you can't help me, drugs are only going to make things worse. And that was my philosophy. I know that that medications play a really important role in a lot of people's lives. But for me, it wasn't going to be an option. And I was mad.
Yeah.
So I went in search. And again, those people who know me and know me well know that I have never been okay with just accepting.
Yeah, totally.
So I went through this master's program in forensic psychology. I'd been working with kids with autism and behavioral science for as long as I could remember. And for me, what I needed was a system like they have in autism, something that will say, here's your objective, this is where you want to be, and this is how we're going to get here, and this is how we're going to measure how we're going to get there.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
I was never a sciencey kind of person. I always believed that science was really more math, and it was going to be really hard and scary, but this kind of science made so much sense. To find out that there's a way to measure progress in emotional welfare, essentially.
Right.
You know, we don't even talk about mental illness or mental health even. This is about your emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
That to me was very intriguing. So the more I went into that, I realized that for all of the work that I had done, spending all my time working in autism, I could really apply a lot of these tools to making life better. Doesn't mean that things won't happen. It just means that when they happen, I have the resources to handle it, and I don't need to make an emergency appointment with a therapist.
I'm going to stop you right there. How cool is that?
Right.
That when you talk with Liz, that you are not dependent on her. And I think that's one of the big things where we really connect, is because at my talks, I'm not here to make you become a patient.
Right.
You know, like that's not what we're here for. We're about awareness. We're about action steps of what you can do naturally to help your family, yourself, and then really, like you're saying, the community.
And it's amazing. It's just astounding. So I spent 20 years working with children with autism, helping them to rise above the triggers that offset them. Absolutely. Right? And now I kind of do this with everybody. You know, we're all triggered by things in the world. Think about the last time you got cut off driving. What was the first thought that went into your head?
I love it.
Right?
Because we were coming here to the office, and there was the sign above saying it's a student driver, and I was about 30 yards behind, and I was tapping on my brakes because I knew they were going to turn, and literally like 1 or 2 miles an hour, like she was on her brakes trying to turn, and I was just thinking like, how about that, right? like when we first,
how about that? Yes.
When we first get into this and you start taking your thoughts captive, a lot of times because we're unaware and we're so triggered by society, it's all about reactively listening to it. And so as we start diving into it and start applying what she's talking about,
we become more responsive instead of reactive.
Absolutely. Then you can turn the corner with one hand while you're having a conversation with someone in the back seat. It's like it's just so crazy that it just becomes second nature to me when you actually start applying it. And it's already, I mean, when did I take the class? A couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And already I'm finding that I'm already doing the things that you're talking about.
And it eliminates a lot of that chaos that comes into your mind, right? So you don't have to think about that student driver for the rest of the day and start feeling that frustration again. You absolutely look at it and go, well, now I can talk about it. It's a funny story. Yeah. And I'm not emotionally charged by it. And this is one of those things, because our emotions guide our behaviors. And this is my favorite thing. When was the last time you slammed a door in someone's face that you were really happy to see? It doesn't happen, right? We slam doors when we're angry. We scream when we're angry. And, to distill it down to these emotional states, when I work with people, we work in 4 emotional states to start, right? Because like James was saying, I teach. I'm an educator. I'm going to teach you these tools. And then beyond that, I'm going to coach you in using them effectively and efficiently so that they make your life better. So the emotional states that cause the most destruction, that cause the most challenges in your life, fear, guilt, anger, and hopelessness. And they tend to come in these other 4 categories of our life: love, health, wealth, and self-image. Well, that kind of feels like the whole person, right? So here you are at work. Let's talk about wealth for a minute.
Sure.
How many people out there got admonished by their boss for something, got corrected for something, and just lost it? You wrote that email, you hit send, you got fired.
Yeah. Right?
Has it happened?
Or you went down that road where you called 10 of your close friends and you just talked bad about the person. And I see it a lot of times with relationships.
Sure.
People talk bad about their significant other or whatever it is. And what does that drive more of? More of those feelings that just down that spiral, right?
Well, and then now let's talk about when I'm talking to my friends. Let's say I'm having a big fight with my partner, and I'm talking to my friends about it. Now, how do they feel about my partner? Because we're going to get over this fight.
Absolutely.
And now we've just caused a ripple.
And then they come back to the party, and everyth's good between you and your partner.
Yeah, and they're like, but I'm still mad at him.
And then you're like, wait, we like him again? Or, so...
And so an emotional state, which is kind of a momentary thing, you're triggered by something in the world, and the process kind of goes like this. You ask yourself the question, what just happened? And then, so you ask yourself, what just happened? And then all of a sudden your subconscious comes up and it provides you a picture. Yes. And it's like, hey, remember what just happened? Now this is where I get all excited and geeky about the brain again.
Oh, come on.
Because neuro research, and I love fMRIs. If you don't know what a functional magnetic resonance imaging system is, Google it. They're awesome. Yes. The pictures from the fMRIs are amazing. They show you where your blood is flowing in your brain when you're doing certain things. So I'm not quite sure how these studies were done because I've never seen a portable fMRI, but I'm sure they exist. But the research says that experiencing something and then remembering that experience light up the exact same parts of your brain.
That's huge.
So now let's go back to that student driver.
Yeah.
When you think about that student driver, those same parts of your brain are lighting up. Now, if you weren't able to use the system that I taught you, you'd be like, yeah, I was a student driver, but I can get over it.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago, we were coming back from church. Right? You should be probably at the best emotional state that you're in. And there was a guy that was he was a bad driver. And I instantly was getting frustrated. And I was talking about how frustrated I was. And honestly, it's like from that to this, right? Both times, actually, going home from church, I didn't have anywhere to be, really.
Right.
But today, we were coming here to this. Right. And it was just a complete 180 of what my reality was.
And it's pretty astounding because, like we were talking about the feedback loops, there isn't something that happens just to your emotional state.
Right.
Or to your thoughts. It all goes together. It all goes together. And so your emotional state triggers your thoughts or the other way around, and then your thoughts and your emotional state cause you to move. They cause that behavior.
Yes.
Now, did I say in the seminar, did I give you the definition of behavior at the seminar?
Yes, you did.
Was this, so the definition of behavior, according to applied behavior analysis, is anything a dead man can't do. Okay? So this becomes one of those things where when you have this emotional state, which is another thing that a dead man can't do, right? Mm-hmm. You have this emotional state and you react in one way or another. Some people don't overly react. They'll clench their jaws.
Yeah,
that goes right back to you, right? Like you start clenching your jaw too much.
Yeah, where do you hold when you have stress or there's anxiety? Where do you hold that stress? Majority of people, right here, right behind the shoulders, in between. That's a direct correlation between your emotional state and the
your physical state. Yeah.
And then there's also studies showing that your posture literally changes the chemistry inside of your body, and so we always talk about chemical imbalance.
And there we have it again here with the emotional state.
Yes.
Let me geek out a minute.
I'm ready.
Because when you're stressed out, and we talk about the stress cycle, right?
Yep.
You talk about the bear. I usually talk about the saber-toothed tiger, whatever it
absolutely.
Is. You're under immediate threat. And what happens? Your brain releases all those awesome chemicals. You've got adrenaline, you've got cortisol, you've got testosterone, because it's going to get you away from the bear or from the tiger.
That is the right thing at the right time.
And there's the next part that nobody knows about. Should we tell them about the last part of the stress cycle?
I think we should.
We should. The last part of the stress cycle is recovery.
That's amazing. And we're on the same page with that.
Yeah. How many people know about recovery?
Yeah.
Because recovery actually does a couple of things, right? Recovery requires another person.
Yep.
It requires physical contact, and it requires tears. Did you know that too? Tears are a cleanser. This is amazing. So once you get that physical contact, your brain releases the oxytocin.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, that's like a scrubber. It gets all these great things out of the places where they're stuck. Gets that testosterone, gets that, not the oxytocin, that's what's doing
cortisol.
The cortisol, thank you, and the testosterone, and
norepinephrine.
So
there's a lot of chemicals.
He's going to do the chemicals.
Yeah, sure.
But so the oxytocin comes and scrubs all of that out of where it's been stored while you're under stress.
Yeah.
And then the tears help you to actually get them out of your system.
That's good.
It's pretty amazing.
And that's a good reminder that what we're not saying is that your emotions are bad.
Oh no, your emotions give you information.
They give you insight, but when you live your life as a reactive state from your emotions, that's where a lot of people unfortunately live.
And they break down.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where we get really sick. Now here's this other part about the brain connection.
Yeah.
There are 500 million brain cells that line your gut. They line your gut. Did you know this? So this is your intestinal tract.
Yeah.
And if you have any kind of gut distress, that, never mind the pathways, it's right there.
Yeah.
Your neurons are there. And so when you have gas or bloating or things like this is going to affect your brain cells. It's going to affect how you feel.
Gut-brain connection, absolutely.
Absolutely. And we know that there are 3 specific gut disorders that we know have a direct emotional inlay. And those were things that we talked about at that seminar. And if you're curious, you can definitely call me or send me an email. But it's very interesting to recognize that it's so quick.
Yeah.
Now, you said something about how emotions give you information.
Yeah.
And I want to address that for a second because we have emotions so that they can help us discern what's safe in our environment.
Absolutely.
And it's really important to recognize that when that student driver is in front of you, you have some choices. Now, maybe if you're both making that left turn, you don't have as many choices. But at this point in time, in life, there are always ways that you can say, hey, this is frustrating. I don't choose to be frustrated right now.
Yeah.
And then we have our system, we have our tools so that we can literally let it go.
Yeah.
Because now we have the tools. We actually have the recipe for letting things go so that they don't affect the rest of our day. Absolutely. And we can take that information and use it.
Yeah.
The next time I see a student driver on the road, I'm going to make sure I'm not behind him. Right? Yeah. Because I take that information. That frustration is unnecessary for me.
And if it's going to be a big problem, leave 5 minutes earlier. Because
right.
Stuff always happens. Whether you hit every red light, whatever it is. But when we're running late, we're already in that stress response, right? Because we're thinking about how we're going to be late. We're already flooding our questions, right? Of what people are going to think, what were they going to say, what should I lie to them? Should I say this is what happened?
Right.
And then you're going down this road and you're hitting every red light. And then since you're already in that state, then
how do you show up?
Yeah. You're usually on time anyways. Or if you're 5 minutes late, nobody even notices. It's
but
not
you're
a big
still
deal.
Stressed out.
But you're still stressed out.
And then the first person who approaches you is like, what's going on with you?
Hey,
you don't seem right.
Okay?
Now, here's that other component. Or I don't know if it's a component, but here's another piece that needs to that we need to pay attention to. When your emotional state is out of whack, even if you're a great actor, you can't hide it.
Yep.
And there was another research team out of Portland, Oregon. It's called Science of People, and they're really wonderful. And they've done a ton of research on how people use their intuition, kind of. So they had a bunch of people at a party, and they had one person that came in super stressed out about something that had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of kept their space. Like, nobody wanted to approach this person. Mm-hmm. And it's not because they knew anything about where he'd come from. He didn't come in saying, well, all these things were wrong, and thank God I'm here. He just, his energy. His energy. Sure. And, how we work with our own energy, because everything that goes on in us requires energy, and it puts energy out, and the field around us, whether or not you believe in energetic things, you have to know that people can feel your energy.
Yeah, so you walk into a room that's stressed out, right? Maybe it's a board meeting, something you're walking into a room and everyone's stressed. Instantly, you perceive that without saying a word. If everybody was quiet, you would perceive that energy, and you would change, right? You're Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton. He's a fantastic.
Yes. He talks a lot about the subconscious, too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he says the function of the nervous system is to perceive the environment, then coordinate the behavior of all other cells. So just like a good mentor, it listens first.
Yeah.
And so once it picks up on what's going on, if you're going into a stressful room, you react, right? And your body starts to prime itself to be ready for it.
Right.
If you go into a happy, excited room, then you naturally, your emotions elevate and get to that state. And so I think that's so crucial. And let's just talk about the spiritual, right? Like you're talking about energy. What's the difference between a body that there's somebody that's alive and a body that there's somebody that's dead? physically, like we look at everything. Sure, one's not like functioning, but there's literally nothing that's different between them. So like and this is my thought, my reasonable explanation is that we're spiritual beings living in a physical body. And I think that just as that idea of that, then that life force, if you will, or soul, whatever you want to call it, like that would be that energy field, right? Like there's something more to that body than just, you know, somebody that like there's literally physically nothing different. So, does that make sense?
I think so.
Do you want to elaborate on it? Because sometimes when you're talking, especially in front of the camera, or you're just kind of going off the cuff like this, sometimes when you say something, you don't necessarily know that you say a certain thing, and then and so we're just kind of going
talking
with
about spirits. It's lovely.
Well, yeah, what we're talking about is the energy running through the body. Between the
And, you know, we'd have to extrapolate here because neither one of us is focused here. But, you know, recognizing that whatever you call it, and you can see lots of videos on YouTube how people don't actually ever really touch. It's just these energetic fields around them that connect. Quantum physics is way over my head. But when it comes back down to let's go ahead and assume the spirit. Okay. Right? And now how does the emotional state play into that? Well, this is a response that your spirit has to deal with. And then it ends up being a part of everybody else who's around you. Absolutely. You know, there are a lot of people who are like, well, when I'm in a bad mood, I just crawl into a hole because I know it's going to affect other people. Right? If I'm in a bad mood, I might yell at somebody, I might snap at somebody, or I might just shut down and not be a great companion at the time. I know a lot of people who do go to spiritual counseling because they recognize that there's something that's bigger, that seems to have a lot of control. I'm going to take that to a lesser level, though. Okay. Or I don't know if it's a lesser level, but kind of a more physical-ish. When in my program we talk about the subconscious. Yep. And really, we talk about the subconscious because we don't have a mechanism that we study. We study shifts in attitudes. And truly, this is a scientific process, and we are studying how people's attitudes about certain things shift. Yep. About worry, about guilt, about anger, about sleep. I mean, I've got a 22-point scale that I have people fill out. And for each one of these things, you know, they're all intended to be related to what's automatic, right? What our body does by itself without us thinking about it. And our thoughts, our emotions, you know, because we're triggered by things out in the world, they're all very automatic. And we talk about the subconscious because the subconscious is what we think of when we think of that processor, that which takes in all this information. When I work with very religious people, they often refer to this as the divine spark, as their soul. And that's fine, whatever it is, because I wish I could say exactly what it is. Yeah. We don't know. We call it the subconscious because we believe that the subconscious is the encasement for these automatic processes. And then this is fun. There's new research that says that the conscious mind, it doesn't actually make decisions. It validates decisions that the subconscious has already made. Yeah. That brings us back to what I do. Because when you can take yourself as your best resource and know that your automatic process is taking all of the available information, which in 50 minutes, I was never, ever, ever able to get out to a therapist. Yeah. Right? So, you know, you go to a therapist, and I remember this. I would spend all week writing down the things that I was going to tell her because that was going to help her help me. Right. And then she'd say, oh, just do this. And I would say, well, I can't because... time. Yeah. Oh, our time is up. We're going to have to pick this up next week. I haven't gotten anywhere. Yeah. And my subconscious, this automatic thing, this thing that feels so out of control because my emotions are all over the place because I can't get this help. Come to realize that if I were to do something simple, like ask myself the right question. Yeah. So you're trying to tell me that you don't have to dive into your childhood to make a change for the future. I am telling you that you do not have to dive into your childhood. None of my clients, and some of them try. Sure. But none of my clients get far into telling me how their mothers hurt them. Nobody points a finger. Yep. What I teach people is this, it's this really strange concept. I always thought I understood what empowerment was, conceptually, I guess.
Sure.
But I think the bottom line for me was when I recognized that I was my own best resource, that I could ask myself a good question that would get me to a good place. You know, if I'm not, I was really sick for a long time. I was going to see all these doctors who were going, here, take this drug, here, take this drug, here, take this drug. None of them were working. And at some point when I asked myself, you know, what resources can I reach out to that are going to do something different?
Yeah.
And I found a chiropractor, actually, who introduced me to biofeedback, which is another service that I provide here because of the impact that it had on me in such a short time. So between biofeedback, functional emotional fitness, which is what I taught you, it's this phenomenal system. And it is the same for everyone, and it is different for everyone. Cool. And this is the coolest thing about it. There's a concept in psychology called transpersonal. Transpersonal is the thing that makes us all the same, but also makes us different. We all have brains. We all have skin. But our brains and our skin are also the things that make it clear that I'm Liz and you're James.
Yeah, sure.
So this is the most transpersonal system I've ever seen, and I've gone through a master's in psychology where I was working with juvenile delinquents and serial killers. I mean, we needed processes for those too.
Sure.
And then that doctoral program and all these things where there was nothing that could say, do this and you will get these results. Whereas with functional emotional fitness, I can share the same tools with somebody who's dealing with anxiety, somebody who's dealing with postpartum depression, somebody who's dealing with a loss. Grief is a big one. Guilt is a big one.
Guilt and shame. Yes.
Yeah, you learn these tools and you can apply them to even the student driver on the road,
sure.
To dealing with your boss, to dealing with your sister, or whoever it is that, you know, is causing a challenge or whatever challenge you have in life. I worked with a CEO who was like, you know, I've made my billions of dollars. Yeah. And, I know, but he didn't feel like his life had meaning.
Yeah.
So searching for meaning in your own life it's a wonderful thing to do. So when I work with people who are struggling with really significant and severe emotional challenges. And I also work with people who just want to improve their lives.
Yeah.
And they're all learning the same thing. And they're all getting the same coaching. Except it's for them.
Yeah.
Which makes it really unique and special for them.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, because that's exactly what I'm saying, too. Because people come into my office when their health is completely shot. Like when they are at last-ditch effort, especially in the world of neurodevelopmental challenges, when parents have gone to doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist, and they've spent thousands of dollars on treatments, yet they're still looking for an answer. And it's literally like they come in saying, hey, you're my last ditch effort.
That's what I get a lot of too. Yeah. I've tried everything. Nothing works.
Nothing works. And then, so we have that realm. Mm-hmm. We have the realm of, hey, I completely paleo. I exercise every single day.
the healthiest person I know.
How can I be healthier? And so we do. Right. And when we work with principles, when we work with, actionable steps that people can apply, every single person's unique. If we had 50 kids here with ADHD, they would all have a different form of ADHD, if that makes sense, because we're completely different.
Right.
And our physical, chemical, emotional stresses in our lives are completely different. Our eating habits, our exercise, the adjustments, sleep. Mm-hmm. There's so many factors that roll into it. So when you get to have these, you get to personalize it to each individual person. Yeah. And you get to walk them through it, and they're all on their own journey. That's when people really get the best results, is because it's personalized.
Right. Well, and recognizing, too, I mean, I always said I was scared of science, but this is my favorite science ever, because I don't keep people. Yeah. I know you had said at one point, people always said once you see a chiropractor, you'll always
have to go.
Right. Yeah. And there's a reason for that, because we tend to get out of alignment.
There's always
and I can't realign myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I need that extra.
I can't adjust myself.
So I need that extra help. And with the program that I teach, I'm going to work with you until there are 3 steady data points.
Yeah.
And I've never worked with anybody for longer than 12 hours. So I had 30 years of therapy. Mm-hmm. I'm not even going to calculate the hours or the time, and got I don't want to say I didn't get anywhere. I don't know, because you can't do a reversal. I don't know where I would have been had I never had it. But I do know that I've never had a client walk out of my office feeling worse than they did when they came in. Mm-hmm. And in 12 hours, I see the data that says you've just created a new habit. And maybe that's the other thing that needs to be said here. What I do is I change people's habits. I help people change their own habits. Right. And usually it is the habit of how you talk to yourself.
That's crucial.
It is crucial. And here's the funny thing about habits. Anybody out here ever been a nail biter? Right? I mean, most nail biters, you're halfway through at least one of your hands before you even know that your hand is in your mouth.
Right.
And for me, what I want to do is I want to teach people to use this system as if they're a nail biter. Yeah. I want them to be doing it before they even realize they're doing it. And I have the skills to do it. I have the tools to do it. And I can do it in less than 12 hours for most people.
Like I said, we took a 4-hour seminar, and I'm already doing it before I even know that I'm doing it.
Well, and here's an interesting thing, because that actually speaks to learning theory, right? Mm-hmm. We learn from our reinforcement or punishment, right? When you learn something and it feels good, you're like, I'm going to do more of that. Yeah. You learn something and it doesn't feel good, you're probably not going to continue.
Touching a stove. Ooh. It only took me 3 times to learn that one.
Oh, that's usually one trial. Okay.
And I'm a slow learner, so that should say something towards your program.
But truly, I mean, learning theory states it's all about reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcement increases the likelihood of behavior. Punishment is not always punitive, right? Punishment simply decreases, the words. Yeah. It decreases the desire to continue to have that behavior. Absolutely. So, like, when you learn something and you're like, wow, in this moment, I can do this one simple thing and I feel relief instantly, you're going to do that more often. Absolutely. Whether or not you're consciously thinking of it, your subconscious went, wait, no, something else felt better, let's go back to that. And it remembers even if you don't. Yes.
And so let's talk about that. Dr. Bruce Lipton again.
Awesome.
Nerves that fire together, wire together. He also, there's another ton of different quotes. I was just looking him up yesterday. Maybe we'll just do a video of us just reading it.
Oh, I think you'll love it. He's wonderful.
But yeah, so nerves that fire together, wire together. And if you're having those same emotional, negative thoughts every single day, right? We have 60,000 thoughts a day.
Right.
40,000 of them, let's say, negative or
not mine, not my clients either.
Yeah. I mean, looking at it again, like every single one of us still has our own struggles that we deal with. But if we scale back and look at it, man, we're not dealing with those same struggles that we were dealing with, 2 weeks ago or 10 years ago. And so I think that that's a huge thing is once you start implementing this, you have to know that the thoughts that you have every single day, they literally can change the physical structure of your brain.
Yeah.
So your brain isn't just hardwired. No. You can't change it. It's plastic still, and even into your adult years.
Absolutely. And I'm really grateful for that because I had a traumatic brain injury when I was 18, and I was always told the brain is the only part of the body that doesn't heal.
Right.
I'm so grateful that all of those doctors were not correct. And I'm not saying they were bad doctors. They were going with the information they had.
Sure.
But 20 years ago, I believed I was going to live with brain damage for the rest of my life. Man. And now I'm working just now, since we moved to North Carolina, I'm working with a functional neurologist who's helping to repair what hasn't yet been repaired. So there's a little bit of my brainstem that still needs some work, and that's what we're working on. And it's amazing because we can heal.
Yes.
And all these automatic processes, they're automatic because of design, right? I mean, we breathe, and it's automatic.
The autonomic nervous system controls that.
However, our consciousness can too. I can choose to take a deeper breath.
Right.
I can choose to blink faster or try to keep my eyes open. Even though when I'm not thinking about it, these things happen automatically. The same thing is true with our thoughts. And if our thoughts are connected to our emotional state, and if our emotional state is connected to our behavior, how cool is it that we now know that there's a way to intervene, that we can consciously say, hey, I don't want to live life on autopilot anymore. It's not working for me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to shift into manual. I'm going to take some control, and I'm going to say, this doesn't work for me anymore.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to be frustrated by the drivers on the road, which worked for me really well because I was living in California for 12 years, and if you've never driven the 101, just look for video of it on Google. I mean, it's crazy making to watch it. It's worse when you're in it.
Sure.
So truly, this is where that process comes in really helpful. Like, what am I going to do to make this drive more tolerable? It's amazing. You flip through the radio and suddenly your favorite song comes on, or you got a podcast that you've been waiting to listen to, and you don't even think about it when you're frustrated.
Right.
But the minute you pull yourself out of autopilot, you have opened up so many possibilities.
So cool that, just knowing that, you can completely transform your reality instantly.
Right, and so it's fun because there's a part of me here that's like, oh no, we're just giving away secrets. Except that I know the other part of the secret is your automatic functioning is really strong.
Yes,
really
and when
strong.
you start to, let's say that you just get you go to a seminar, you get fired up. 3 days later, everybody in the world knows that you went to the seminar and you're a changed man. And then the 4th day, you're back to where you were.
Old patterns, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Drop your coffee and suddenly your whole day is ruined.
How much is it worth to you to know that you could literally have the tools to be able, and it's not like we're hiding it. It's just like, this is groundbreaking things, and whatever number you probably put into your head of like how much worth that is and how much that could transform your life.
It's probably not.
It's not
That's
even
not what we're
close
charging.
to that. And quite honestly, those seminars that give you the three-day hype, they're charging more. And it's sad and it stinks that people, have burned through this and they've gone through this a ton of times. So can you kind of speak to that? Like, can you speak to if somebody comes in and they want to train with you, how will they know that it's not just another one of those like these quick result schemes or that not even a scheme, like they have good intentions, but they don't have enough to really back it up?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the follow-up. I do my program when I teach individuals. The first week we're together, we spend 5 hours together. That's where I'm teaching you.
Yeah.
And I typically ask for a 12-hour commitment because I know what the data says. People who come and do the 5 hours and they say, oh my God, that's so easy, I can go out and do it myself. I guarantee you that within 2 weeks max, you're back to your old patterns and you don't feel like you have any control over what's going on in your life. Some people actually even feel worse. I've definitely had people who were like, now my thoughts are way out of control and all I'm thinking is negative things because you're not using the process, right? So for me, what I do with my program, and there are other coaches around who do functional emotional fitness, and they will do the 4-hour seminars, and you do your data at the beginning and at the end, and they say, look how much you've improved.
Yeah.
And that's great. I track over time.
Long term. Yeah.
So, it's 12 hours. It's going to be 6 weeks.
Changing the long term. Like that's what you're trying to get towards.
Right.
More of a.
Well, and what I get to is, I'm going to teach you what the process is. You're going to say, oh my gosh, this is so easy, whatever. And then you're going to come back to me in a couple of weeks and say, okay, I must have done something wrong. And it's really easy because my door's always open, right? I don't pass any judgment. I know it seems easy. I felt the same way when I first got certified. And then I realized pretty quickly, I better get back to doing it or else it's not going to work. So what I do is, you'll work with me for 5 hours and then after that, it's 90 minutes once a week until you've got that data. And it's really all about making sure that you are using the tools appropriately. I've talked also about a nail. Yeah. So if there's a nail sticking out of the wall and you've never heard of a hammer before, right?
Yeah.
You're going to deal with this nail sticking out. It's going to scratch you, whatever. The minute you know that a hammer exists and that this is what it's for, you're like, I don't have to deal with this anymore. Now, you can put the hammer away once you've hammered in that nail.
Right.
But the next time you see a nail, you're going to pull out that hammer and go, I've got this. Right?
Absolutely.
And this is very much what I do. So, after the first 5 hours, you're going to go for a week, and then you're going to come back, and I'm going to ask you how you used your hammer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How did you use your hammer? Did you find it was useful on the days that you didn't? Mm-hmm. How did that feel for you? And really, the data is what guides our sessions.
Right.
So, I'm going to look at this data, and I'm going to look at all this progress you've made. Here's this one place. What's going on with this worry? Is it about your future, right? Mm-hmm. Or which part is it? And we're going to take, with functional emotional fitness, there are 4 tools that I teach.
Okay.
And then there are a couple other things. But we're going to take one of these 4 tools and we're going to apply it to this issue. And you're going to see immediate results.
Absolutely.
And when I work with people, when I can see that they're having results, because I can see the shoulders go back, they relax.
Take the breath in and
they'll get this thing on their face.
What is that called?
It's like a smile. It's amazing. And they start feeling relief.
Yeah.
Immediately. And we know why. Mm-hmm. It's because of what the brain is doing.
Absolutely.
We are our own best drug dealers, right?
Yeah.
We absolutely are. So once the brain can feel some relief, it's almost like hitting recovery. It's like that phase right before recovery where then you can go home to somebody you love. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be a partner. It can be a sibling. It can be your best friend, whatever it is. Connect and get into that recovery place so that you can really let it go and feel empowered. Absolutely. And I will say the one thing I ask every single one of my clients at the end of our work together, if there was one word that you could say that describes what you've gone through, every single one of them says empowerment.
Really?
Empowerment. And none of us knew what it was until we realized that it was here. And suddenly we don't need, we don't need to be scrambling, asking, and begging. We say, okay, this is what's going on, and these are the resources I need to be able to address it. Awesome. Or if I don't know those resources, I know that I need to find them. And suddenly there's no hopelessness anymore, because there's always another option.
Love it.
Hopelessness is a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big issue.
There's a lot of science behind hopelessness.
Oh my gosh. And, we're running out of time here, but teens, I've talked to a lot of college students who are like, what am I doing here? Yeah. And they're terrified of their future and they're hopeless for what they're doing. And we can flip that so fast. So fast.
That's awesome.
And I hear the people are like, I'm waiting for the right time.
Yeah.
How much longer do you want to feel like this?
Right.
But I get the skepticism.
Totally.
I really do.
12 hours and
and of course I tell people 12 hours because to me 12 hours is nothing.
Yeah, seriously.
If we did 52 hours a week for 30 years, the math gets really scary.
Yeah.
So 12 hours to me is
seriously.
I mean
we waste 12 hours in a week.
Easily.
For sure.
Memes, YouTube, Facebook,
which is programming us in a negative mindset.
In many cases, because they've got their algorithms. So just a quick note, if your feeds and any of your social media are coming up with a lot of negative stuff, stop clicking on it. Click on the positive stuff. Their algorithms will give you the kitties.
Is that life or what?
If
you keep focusing on all the negative,
right?
What's going to happen?
All that's going to be there.
Your reticular activating system is going to seek out
your
more
brain.
Of those things.
Yes.
And so, if you look at the positive, I love saying this. It's like if your belief system is that there is good in every single person, your brain is going to find and seek subconsciously. It's going to find and seek good in those around you. And if your belief system is
most people are trying to hurt
you, get something from you, then that's what your reality is going to be. And just like you're looking to buy a car, you start seeing that same car it's like a white Jeep Wrangler. You start seeing those everywhere. And
now we're all going to see white Jeep Wranglers. Thanks, Dr. James. Well, this has been a lot of fun.
It is.
Yeah, I think, and I feel like there's so much more to talk about. We've taken an hour of your time. Thank you for spending this time with us. I think we're going to do this again.
Absolutely.
And if you've got any questions or if you have topics that you'd like for us to discuss, go ahead and leave those in the comments. And
we're always here for you. So we want to be a resource in this community that you can come to, knowing that you're going to get unbiased information about your health, about your, the emotional component, about everything.
About your environment, right.
This is what we do, and we want to give back to this community in every way possible.
You're pretty new to this community too, right?
Pretty new,
We're both very new to the Raleigh area, so if you're local, come on by.
We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to see how we can help you. Set up an appointment.
I work online a lot too. You do some virtual consults, but for the most part, people have to be here.
Mostly, yes. Yep.
So if you're seeing this and you're not in state and you're curious about the things that I do personally, I do work online as well. So I have clients all over the world, which I feel very fortunate about.
That's awesome.
It's been very cool. And we can talk more about, my background and how I ended up as the #1 coach in the world. I'm so proud of that.
Oh, she kept that one from us.
I know.
I didn't even know about that.
Because my data got pulled.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, so
congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm going to put a certificate up here.
Yes,
but
that's perfect.
yeah, so if you have any questions, our numbers are here, our web addresses are here, and soon you're going to see some big changes with You Be Well, so stay tuned. Awesome. And thanks so much for spending the time with us.
Thanks, guys.
It's fun.
Yeah, that was good.
It's good I'll be able to